one thing that McKinsey does really well, right, is their talent reviews. There is so many protectionist barriers in place to avoid any kind of unconscious bias or preferential treatment, right? So actually, while sometimes the staffing process can unfairly favor people who have those contacts, actually, I would say the performance management review doesn't do
Mm-hmm.
that, right? Because it's essentially you have to collect multiple feedback from people you've worked with. You're then sat in a room full of all the partners who are kind of passive. They're called DGLs, but they're the kind of the assessor. They'll have a group of BAs that they assess, but not BAs they've actually worked with themselves. So their job
Mm-hmm.
is to speak to everyone else they've worked with, pull together a third party kind of case on this person. What have they done well? What have they not done well? Then they all come back together and discuss, say, 50 business analysts with the same tenure together, and there's this
Mm-hmm.
ranking based on that review process, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they'll debate that. And there's a number of HR professionals in the room who are trained on spotting and recognizing biased language, and really pushing partners for examples. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where they make a statement against somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's done really well, right? And then that kind of
Mm-hmm.
really affects people, and I think really looked after me when I was there.
Uh-huh. Fantastic. That's really good to hear. So part of that performance review panel are people who actually haven't worked with the analysts that are being reviewed for promotions.
Yeah, yeah.
Is what you're saying. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So the partner that was responsible for pulling together my
Mm-hmm.
review is not a partner I've ever personally worked with.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You have, I suppose, but most of the time, it's even if you have worked with them, it's only been like 10% of your year that you've
Right.
worked with them because you work with multiple partners. And their job is to speak to all of their colleagues and pull together a kind of 360 review, a good representation of how
Mm-hmm.
you performed throughout the year.
And that's such a simple technique in a way to avoid implicit bias. Just make the decision makers, the people who will not have known you personally or who have not worked with you for so long closely, add additional people for who will question, the opinions that someone who knows you very well will make, just so you can cross check yourself. Am I being objective? Am I being subjective? And just to make sure that only what you've done is being assessed rather than any biases coming influencing this decision.
Yeah, exactly right. Because if a partner that I just had a good relationship with was to say, I think Sophie's performing way above her tenure and therefore should be considered for, rapid progression to the next stage at this next cycle, is that the committee would then say, okay, that's great, but I think we basically have a room full of people performing above their tenure here because that's the people we hire. So can you give me specific evidence based on what you've heard about the other analysts we're discussing in the room? Can you give me specific evidence about what Sophie's done that goes above and beyond what everyone else has done?